Okay, so my session this evening is on creation stories, a variety of them, including some reframing of the texts with which we are already familiar. So what do you notice in this opening slide?
It could be a geode, or it could be mountains and water.
Okay,
Looks like a topographical map.
okay.
It's very alive.
It does seem very alive, doesn't it? It seems as if there's movement. Yeah, that we've caught it in just a moment.
I think it's interesting. I see it as either micro or macro, a view from space looking down, or something so tiny that this is the magnification.
Thank you, Josephine. That's an interesting insight too. Well, go ahead.
Ken Burns's phrase, Linda, comes to mind, the morning of creation.
Tell me more, Claire.
In his National Parks series, that phrase just kept coming up over and over again when he let the woods and the mountains and the streams and the oceans just speak rather than having voiceovers. And it was the way the whole thing, several of the episodes, I think, started just with that. Do you remember that?
Vaguely. Yeah, I should. That's something else I need to revisit.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great lead into what we're going to offer you next. In 1981, the then dean of the Cathedral of St. John the Divine in New York commissioned from Paul Winter and his group of musicians something called the Earth Mass. How many of you are familiar with that? Okay, Claire is. All right. I'm familiar with that because I'm sorry. Pamela, could you mute? Thanks. His summer home was in Northwest Connecticut. And one of the things that he did was offer this whole Earth Mass to the community. And I didn't see it in place in the cathedral in New York, but it is a magnificent piece of work celebrating the earth. So Nancy's going to play this video clip for you, and then we will look at the verses so that you can, if you don't hear Rhonda Larson singing clearly, I think you can see the words in print afterwards. Okay, thanks, Nancy. This is just one song from the
You don't still see the PowerPoint, do you?
No.
Okay, because I stopped sharing and then I shared the video and it still looked like the PowerPoint. Yeah, now I keep seeing the PowerPoint.
Well, try the power.
Hang on one second. It says
Okay.
share. Linda and I practiced this and it worked perfectly.
Yeah, of course, of course.
Okay, let me just try one more time. I'm saying stop share. And I want to share something different. Oh, it's just not showing that video. We can try this, but I don't think this is going to work. You can't see anything, right?
No, but I think that they can hear it. So.
Hi, I'm
Okay.
We sing
So imagine in front of you, instead of the dark screen, would be an image of the Earth from outer space, along with this title of the Earth Mass, or what Paul Winter called it, the Missa Gaia. So I can send you the link, or you can just ask Mr. Google to show you the video of this one song from the Earth Mass. It's called The Blue-Green Hills of Earth. For the earth forever turning, for the skies for every sea, to our Lord we sing, rejoicing, returning home to our blue-green hills of earth. For the mountains, hills, and pastures in their silent majesty, for all life, for all of nature, sing we our joyful praise to thee. For the sun, the rain, and thunder, for the land that makes us free, for the stars, for all the heavens, sing we our joyful praise to thee. For the earth forever turning, for the skies for every sea, to our Lord we sing, returning home to our blue-green hills of earth. So does anyone notice anything a little fresh in these lyrics? Something that might strike you? I chose it because Paul Winter says, for the earth forever turning. And we so often speak about the sunrise or the sunset. But in reality, physically, that's not what happens. We're the ones that turn. Earth rises, earth sets. But we have forever described that as the sun rising and the sun setting, where actually our revolution around the sun is what makes us come into the light. So I'm just going to help us reframe the creation narratives a little bit. Nancy, could we go back to the full screen with the people?
Sure.
Okay. Okay. What do you think about that? Oh, there's Glenn. Good.
Well, I think about sometimes when I look here from the 23rd floor and I see the sun setting, and I realize that in fact, I'm turning this way. So in fact, from my balcony, I'm turning backwards. So, I mean, I'm turning, I think of myself, you know, if the earth's turning, I'm turning forward, but in this balcony, I'm turning backwards.
Yeah. And we're going to turn again. We're going to turn the clocks. And of course, today was the first day of fall, and certainly not in Jacksonville, where it was 94 degrees.
Oh, it's going to be +4 tomorrow, which is tomorrow evening, which is, I don't know, 50 something or 40.
40. Yeah. So even on this one beautiful globe, there are lots of different temperatures and frames of reference and turnings. So we're going to now read through, and I'll ask for volunteers, a recasting of the Earth story. But before we do that, so we know that there are two accounts of creation in Genesis. Does anybody want to recount that narrative or give us some highlights from it? Why are there two? Joe?
Why are there two? Well,
Yeah.
you know, the Jewish editors of the book just were loath to leave out anything. And those two traditions had developed over time. And they said, well, we're going to keep them both. They both have explanatory power for what questions we're asking.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. And so, but in general, we know the overall arc of the story, which is that certain things emerged from God's creative hand on every day. And that in one of the narratives, humanity was the culmination, or was interpreted as the culmination of the creation story. What else?
What I remember about the second, I guess, creation story is that man names all of the creatures of the earth.
God, yes, Adam was invited to name the creatures. And then there was, all took place in the garden. What else?
But the other one, the one that's in Genesis 2, which is in fact earlier, doesn't include anything about the creatures and the fish and the birds and all that.
Yeah.
It talks about grasses being there and then God creating man from the dust.
Yes. Yeah. So
Man and woman, I apologize.
humans, the
Human.
human people, the dirt people, the dust people. Yeah. Okay. The creation people. All right. Well, a number of years ago, in my parish in Boston, we would, as usual, read the creation narrative at the Easter Vigil service, which is where we get this whole arc of salvation history that is done every year. And it culminates in the lighting of the Easter Vigil candle. And one year we had quite a number of children being baptized. And I asked one of the parishioners if she would, since the Genesis text is quite long and there are so many lessons in the Easter Vigil service, there are 10 or 12 lessons. I asked her if she could recast the text that might be a good introduction for these children and their families that were about to be baptized. So she rewrote the creation account, and I'm going to give you one account tonight, and I may give you the other one at another time. But we're going to go to that slide now, and we're going to share the reading of that. Next slide, Nancy. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't have those slides in front of me.
Do you want to skip this Wendellberry and go to here?
Well, I think it had a point. I had a point when I
There we go.
put it up, which was that there are a variety of perspectives. And so Wendell Berry is very well known for his poetry about creation. So maybe we should go ahead and read that before
Okay.
go back to the previous one. Okay, would somebody like to read this?
Sure, I can.
Thank you, Lynn.
From Wendell Berry's A Timbered Choir. The sky bright after summer ending rain, I sat against an oak half up the climb. The sun was low, the woods was hushed in shadow. Now the long shimmer of the cricket's song had stopped. I looked up to the westward ridge and saw the ripe October light again, shining through the leaves, still green, yet turning gold. Those glowing leaves made of the light a place that time and leaf would leave. The wind came cool, and then I knew that I was present in the long age of the passing world in which I once was not, now am, and will not be. And in that time, beneath the changing tree, I rested in a keeping not my own.
Thank you, Lynn. What strikes you about this poem?
I'm intrigued by the last line.
Yeah. Yeah. So from the poet's perspective, he's held within something much larger than himself. He's also aware of his own fragility, of things that came before him, of the present moment, and that he will not be in all future moments, but creation will be.
Yeah.
This poem also highlights the changes in creation itself. And so my fondness for a world in which I grew up that had 4 definite seasons, with the leaves changing and the aching wait for spring, I think is one of the reasons why I chose this poem. How many elements of creation are embedded here in Barry's poem?
I was struck by the thing about the long shimmer of the cricket song has stopped because the cicadas have stopped now.
Yeah.
You know, even a couple of weeks ago when we had some hot days, you could hear them, but now it's definitely fall and they've stopped.
Not here. Yesterday I saw a grasshopper the size of my hand on a plant in the front flower bed. I couldn't believe it. But there's still some crickets, not too many cicadas.
Well, he talks about the sky, the rain, the trees, the sun, hang on, the wind.
Mhm.
Good.
Yeah.
Many aspects of nature.
All in one brief poem.
Yeah.
And you can see him, can't you?
Mhm.
Climbing a hill and leaning against a tree and just observing, just paying attention, which is another reason why I love it.
I'm so glad you included this because I love Wendell Berry, but I'd never read this. And it's almost like the human Wendell becomes the tree and sees the world from the tree's perspective. It's not often we can watch a human dissolve into the absolute mystery and majesty of a changing season of nature. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, I thought this poem did relate to the creation narrative. So now we'll go, thank you, Claire. We'll go now to the recasting. The next slide, Nancy, please. So I would like somebody to read this left-hand side of the page and somebody to read the right-hand side of the page, and that's going to go on for 3 slides. So sign up now.
Okay, I'll start us.
Thank you.
My sisters and my brothers, I will tell you a story about the first of the mighty acts of God. In the beginning of God's creation of the heavens and the earth, there was nothing but dark, dark darkness and deep, cold water. And out of that watery darkness, God spoke, and God said, "Let there be light." And a little spark no bigger than the tiny flame of a birthday candle shone forth. And it grew and grew, brighter and brighter and brighter. And God took that light and put it on one side, and God called the light day. And God took the dark and put it on the other side, and God called it night.
Thank you. Helen, thank you.
That was the first day of creation. On the second day of creation, God made a safe, dry place out of that cold, deep water. and God called that safe, dry place heaven. On the third day of God's creation of heavens and the earth, God gathered up all the water under the heavens, just mopped it up and squeezed it out in one place. And God called that place the sea. What was left was dry land, and that was the earth. And out of the earth sprang up tiny shoots, little blades of grass that grew and grew.
Next slide, Nancy. Joe,
Into tall waving fields of grain, little bushes, shrubs, thickets, great tall trees, corn, beans, tomatoes, zucchini. All the plants that grow out of the earth sprang forth on the third day of creation. And on the fourth day of creation, God made the sun to shine in the day, and the moon to shine in the night, and the stars to twinkle, twinkle all over the heavens. On the fifth day, God created the creatures that swim in the sea, tiny snails, shrimp, little fishes, sharks, great whales. All swimming things were created on that day. And then God created the flying creatures, flies.
who wants to read next?
I'll read.
Thank you.
Bumblebees, moths, butterflies, and birds, every kind of bird there is, was created on the fifth day. On the sixth day of creation, God caused the earth to bring forth living creatures, chipmunks, squirrels, rabbits, cats and dogs, goats, pigs, horses, and cows. God caused the earth to bring forth lions and tigers, zebra and elephants, every kind of creature that walks, hops, runs, or climbs on the earth, from the pesky little cockroach to the tall, graceful giraffe. And God loved what had been created. Then God said, I need a helper. I want someone too.
Next.
Linda, read.
Thank you, Nina.
Okay. Love this earth to tend the garden and care for the animals. So from the earth, God created an earth creature, a person, people. And God gave those people ears to hear the sounds of the earth, and eyes to see its beauty, and a mouth to tell of the wonderful creation of God. God gave those people hands to work and feet to dance for joy. God gave them minds to know and to dream, and hearts to love all creation. And that was the sixth day of creation. On the seventh day, day of God's creation of the heavens and the earth, God looked around at all that had been created, light and dark, day and night.
Thank you. The final paragraph. Josephine, thank you.
The seas, the earth, the sun, the moon, the stars, growing things, swimming things, flying things, all living creatures and people. And wasn't God pleased? God was very pleased. And then God created one more thing. God created sacred time, a time to enjoy the creation, a time to rest. And God called that sacred time Sabbath. And that was the seventh day of God's creation of the heavens and the earth. My sisters and my brother, hear what the Spirit is saying to the churches.
Thanks be to God. Thank you. Let me go back to the community, the people. Thank you. So what did you think?
I thought it was much more understandable that the creation was described in terms that would mean something to small children and then to larger children. You know, they're cats and dogs, but then they're lions and tigers if you're a bigger kid, and that's more interesting.
Well, the raccoons were left out, Lynn. I'm sorry about that, but
well, you know, that's probably a good thing.
yeah.
Yeah. But one of the things that really caught my Go ahead.
No, it's Nina's, I think Nina's got some feedback.
Okay. One of the things that really caught me is it didn't say God did this and God did this and God did this. It was God caused the earth to make. And so it was not just collaborative, but it allows evolution of place. You know, I once went to a First Baptist Church, Jacksonville meeting at which we were told with a perfectly straight face that creation was 6,000 years old and it all just popped up. And that's hard to swallow. This makes some sort of sense in terms that would appeal to the brothers and sisters of the baptized children.
Mhm.
I also think that the story in Genesis mirrors evolution as well. So I never understood this concept of evolution and creation being counterintuitive, because so much of the Bible is written with different types of ages and times and perspectives. So I never really understood how anybody could think that evolution and creation stories were counterintuitive somehow. Because
Helen, it floors me too.
in the creation story, particularly not even this one, because this one didn't really mimic the evolutionary path in the same way, but certainly the original story, and nobody at the time would have known about evolution, but they still had this concept that mirrors evolution so well that I think that there was some divine instruction there. There had to have been, because how else would they have come up with this concept?
So what it does, both Ethel Hellman's narrative and the two creation accounts, and also scientific understanding and our sense of mystery and awe, it gives us some room, doesn't it? It doesn't, it can be locked down from a religious standpoint, and you're right, it has been in the past. But there's something delightful about opening up to how else it might happen. And certainly librarians will tell you, or bookstore people, that creation is one of the major topics for children's literature. And that despite the fact that there are already a bunch of those books on the shelf, they're more and more and more every year, right? Everything from God's paintbrush to When God Was a Little Girl to, they just people are fascinated with wonder, and they'd like to hand that on to their children. The other major piece that people never seem to get tired of for children's books is Noah's Ark. But we're going to get to that later. Okay, any other comment about the recasting of the text?
I was pleased when it got to that God was very, very pleased. What I missed slightly was the idea that the creation was good. God is pleased, but does that necessarily say? Because I think that's a really important antidote to that kind of religious expression that says that the creation is fallen, that the creation is wicked and sinful. We have to get out of that and all that sort of thing. I think that for me, that's the most significant thing of the creation story.
Yeah.
And each thing it emphasizes, God saw that what had been made and it was good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
that
missed that a
repetition.
little bit.
No,
Yeah.
that's good. That's a great point. It in the regular creation narrative, you're right. The repetition of, and God saw that it was good. In Ethel's narrative, she said that God loved creation. God loved.
Oh, yes, God loved, and God was very pleased. So it was there, but
not in the same way. No, I
not
agree.
in the same way. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Patricia. Yeah. What else? Joe?
Well, but I think that this creation, the recasting of the creation story, is consistent in many ways with what we talked about last week. Patricia's point about God seeing that what he had done, or what God had done, as being good and being pleased with it. In the Proverbs account, it's very much that he was delighted, and
Yeah.
it was a real object of joy and play.
Mhm.
The basic word from the sermon, from another story this past week at St. John's, and I'm sure in other places as well, was joy, that we're called to joy. And so that word resonates, in the way God approached his creation. So.
Okay. Thank you, Joy.
Linda, I have one more. The end, when it talks about a day of rest or a time of rest, that one has always, for years, kind of bothered me, because when I was small, all the stores were closed, everything was closed down on Sunday, and families got together for Sunday dinner after church, and you would be together and talk in the afternoon, and just that was the way it was in the South anyway, and it was that way in my family. And now they started opening the stores, and I can remember a few of them that opened, and then before you knew it, the entire malls were open and everything was running and crazy on Sunday, and you had to, I felt like people were just hardly able to get an hour to go to church.
Yeah.
It's even worse.
Yeah, this the loss of Sabbath has an impact on our spiritual health.
It's a big impact.
Yeah, and I think that this has been reclaimed in many ways over the years as creation studies have evolved, that Sabbath is a part of the creation. It's not, the narrative is not just about all of these things and animals and people, but holy time to really pay attention, to change our perspectives. I'm just going to pull that little thread through from the beginning of the presentation, to just change our perspective and to delight. And as Joe encouraged everyone to do from last week, to go into that earth examine is a sacred pause. And to pray for what is in front of your eyes nourishes your soul. So it's really good. Okay. Anything else before we move on? Okay. Could I have the next slide, Nancy? Thank you. Okay. So this is just one visual interpretation. What does anybody notice about this?
Looks like the sun is at the center of everything.
Hmm.
Or is the sun reflected in the water? To me, that looks like the sun is being reflected on the Atlantic Ocean.
Yes, I thought that too, reflection.
Yeah.
I see a ship.
Oh.
Where is that?
Or is it a city?
It could be a city. But it's right below the sun.
At the bottom and the center. Yes, I see that.
Yeah. All of this is all of it is possible. This is a bit of an abstract where things are being separated and partially revealed. Thanks for that pickup, Debbie.
It's hard to say where you're standing looking at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, when you kind of blow it up a little, you see a walkway that goes out to the ocean with this tall thing that's built up on top of it, and then it looks out over the ship, so it's like a ship is docked.
Okay.
The sun has a face in it.
Yeah.
It's the artist in me. I see all these different things like that.
That's great. That's great.
When
Well,
I-
there, go
Sorry.
ahead. I'm sorry, Pamela.
When I first saw it, I thought of Cyclops, the one eye. But looking at it and thinking about the past, we had a picket fence. And these white upcroppings make me think of a picket fence.
Okay.
And so that makes me think of happy young times.
And it also is about containment, isn't it? About things having their own place, maybe. Yeah. All of that's possible.
And safety and protection. That's what the fence was for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, we can talk to the artist about that at another time. I found it in my file. So, okay, next slide, please, Nancy. All right, this is another artist's interpretation that was not given attribution, I'm sorry to say, on the web. But there is a sense in this piece, even though it is much, much more stylized, that this too is a perspective from above, or macro or micro, as Josephine was saying, a different perspective of order, the ordering of elements. So I wanted to ask a few questions this evening. Why do you think that creation is the first framing for scripture? If you were going to do a narrative, if you were going to do the overall story of God and God's people, or God's history with people, why is creation, and two narratives at that, why is that the first framing?
Well, a lot of us like to see things chronologically.
Okay, great.
Well, and one of the first questions is, where are we? Why are we here?
Right.
Yes. Yes. Who am I and where did I come from? Why? Yes. And why am I here? What else?
Like a preface to a book. So you kind of know what's going to happen.
Okay.
A lot of what is in the rest of the book.
And certainly you're right. Nina, all of the elements from creation certainly appear in other places in scripture. So we get all sorts of things in the Psalms. Jesus uses a lot of agricultural parables, etc. What else?
So there were other creation myths and stories before Christianity, and maybe with the Genesis, it was a reclaiming of that, or a setting down of the foundations that Christianity would, or the tenets of Christianity and the stories of Christianity would spring from. This was, this was a separate creation, although it pulled from a lot of other creation myths. Maybe this was just.
Yeah, many of us had to read Gilgamesh and a bunch of other things.
Yeah.
And in Canada, certainly there are lots of creation stories. And you're right, Claire, there are multiple cultures have their own version of creation, and they can be radically different, and they might be a little harder for us to enter those narratives. This one looks as if it's from Australia because it has some of the elements of the dreaming, the walkabout dreaming, the active dreaming, with the multiplicity of these dots and marks and the animals at the bottom of of the piece. But
That
Well,
was
the
beautiful.
creation, I would think that the creation story also establishes God as a singular God.
okay, good point. Good
But there are
point.
lots of creation stories that don't do that. And so it seems to me, I wonder about the Australia thing. You know, I don't know. I wouldn't disagree with that. But I noticed that the predominant colors in this are blue and green,
Mhm.
which are not things I necessarily, you know, associate with Australia. I mean, maybe it's beautifully blue and green, but I think of the middle part of the continent, it's not that. So
Yeah.
you know, I
Yeah,
think
that's true.
so much of, you know, when people are thinking of, well, how did we get here? Or where are we from? They have to start from where they are and how did we get to this point? And so it's interesting that the Hebrew people came up with the story that they did, or had it revealed to them whatever happened. I mean, you know, however that, it's I just think it's interesting about that because the other creation stories, as you say, can be quite different. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think also the Genesis chapter 1 has a liturgical framework because it repeats itself. It's a sort of thing that you could tell in a great procession. So, you know, it comes as a worship kind of thing. And so I think that's part of the people's urge to begin to see their history in terms of ritual and action and repetition. I think, I mean, it has a ceremonial flair to it, which Genesis chapter 2 does not.
I think the other piece for me is that creation, at least for me, produces awe. And whenever we're talking about looking at the world that we didn't make, that is this enormous and remarkable gift to us. Awe is something that I acknowledge. So that my framing of my theological understanding comes from a place of being held within, sort of like the Wendell Berry poem, being held within something that is much, much larger and much more inventive and creative than anything I know.
A lot of the North American indigenous stories anyway seem to come, the creation seems to come from within the earth or within the water. And that is the perspective of the one that's in in Genesis is more from outside down or from outside
Okay.
in. Whereas a lot of the indigenous stories are more from the earth and the water and everything, and that's where the
Again, a different perspective.
But my favorites are the Just So stories and how the elephant got his trunk and things like that.
Yeah, those are all really good. So do we understand creation as an event? I mean, certainly the biblical narrative presents it as an event rather than a process. So how does that square with you all theologically?
And I'm not sure why you say as an event. It's a series of actions and reflections. It's not just one performance.
I'd say that I think, Susan, because we have a tendency to define it as an event, creation, it gets its own title. Even though there are multiple actions, I agree with you. There are multiple actions that shape that. And so I guess my question really is God continuing a creation cycle.
I think it reflects back on that conversation a few minutes ago where we said in the text, we talk about on this day, this happened, on this day, this happened, on this day, this happened. Those are event focused. Whereas if we say on this day, God made possible, God initiated, something started, then it's the process. And that is a very easy model to accept and to follow, because it does continue. Ever changing.
Yeah, I think I framed it that way, Susan. Thank you, Josephine. I framed it that way because I think that we name resurrection as an event, or we name incarnation as belonging only to Jesus. And I think the more process theologians really say that God is it's God's nature, it's God's very nature to create. And if that is true, then God's very nature unfolds continually. And we don't, maybe a reframing of that understanding would help us perceive it. I'm not sure.
Maybe one other, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Jeff.
I was going to say maybe one other point is that I think that now it is not at all uncommon to think of creation as involving the relationship between God and us, so that we are co-creators, or, I mean, whatever. So, so to me, that would definitely, I would definitely argue that, creation is not an event. It's not immutable. It's not fixed forever. It started. I'm very happy with that. But beyond that, it's not determined, fixed, immutable, anything. It's whatever happens.
Yeah, I think that God is also about recreation. You were talking, Linda, about the story of Noah's Ark. And I think that is God saying, okay, well, this one didn't work. So we're gonna try it again and see how it works. And then also, just the story of Jesus, that was kind of a recreation. It was taking what was there and then creating something new when Jesus came and taught people different things about the creation. So I think it's a cyclical, well, not a cyclical thing, but a continuous thing.
Yeah, so God's worlds continue to unfold, and certainly we get a sense of that from the cosmos, that new worlds are being born all the time, new stars are being born, and new galaxies and so on. I'm really grateful to the photographers on the spaceships and the shuttles that are able to capture this dynamic so that we can see it. And it just made me wonder, if we accept that God's creation is ongoing, then how do we know where the beginnings are? Are we able to know the beginnings, the genesis of this new creation? I mean, another part of scripture, God says, I'm about to do a new thing. Do you not perceive it? And the answer usually is, no, we don't. we don't really know what you're up to, which gives us a stance of humility, I think, and maybe some curiosity as well. So I think several of you spoke at the beginning about how you are paying attention to ongoing, well, maybe it wasn't beginnings, it's just what is. But does anybody have something to add to this last question?
I think I'm preaching at Jazz Vespers in the first Sunday in October, and I want to talk about listening, because it's, I can make some connections with music and so on, but also about listening. Like, I think it has to be deliberate. paying attention and listening.
Okay.
So maybe I'll pick up some ideas here. So keep talking.
We can go on to the next slide. We can think about this. This is certainly creation has been depicted in traditional iconography. This is a portion of a larger icon that focuses on the creation of light. What do you notice in the icon?
Well, one thing that's interesting to me is the figure, the seated figure, his mouth is closed. And so often, we hear of God speaking things into creation. And here it looks like if this is, a creation of the sun or creation of the sun, then where's he speaking?
Yeah.
But
So in this classic interpretation, it's the hand extended in creation, kind of like the Michelangelo piece in the Sistine Chapel, touching humanity. And who is this anyway?
Yeah.
Yes, I don't know what the letters mean in the halo. Well, they don't look terribly Greek.
No, they don't. I don't know. But the scroll in the hand is interesting.
It was interesting to me, the angels, because that's the description from Isaiah. With two, he covered his face, and with two, he covered his feet, and with two, he flew. The six-winged.
Yeah.
Seraphs.
So Patricia, you say the God is in the sun, not the creature sitting on the blue ball.
Well, I don't know. I mean, usually there's some indication, isn't there? There's the saint's name is beside the halo and so on.
Yeah, my icons aren't here, so I can't check that out with the icons that I did.
Interesting.
The blue ball looks like an eye.
Again, yeah. But you're right.
And then the
These are
water.
some heavenly creatures within this light. The realm of light is where we traditionally, especially in funerals and so on, where we say the angels dwell. So whether they're part of creation or not. I'm sorry, Debbie?
Yeah, it was, I'm just seeing the eye and the water and, because you see the creation.
Yeah. Well, it made me wonder whether we can love creation as much as God loves all that has been made. Because we seem to certainly have done a rather poor job of loving the earth. And I don't think that necessarily that because we call the earth our mother, that we love her any better because we've given her another name. So if we, Thich Nhat Hanh in particular, wrote a book called Love Letter to the Earth. And he's very clear from the Buddhist perspective that loving the earth is a primary task for the spiritual life. Really, really loving. And if we can't love it, is it enough to delight in and recognize that we are caretakers, stewards? That language has changed recently so that we're no longer the ones who have dominion over. Although I think we could probably do a better job of defining what dominion looks like. Certainly we had a lovely example of that in the Queen, whose realms were met with lifelong faith and devotion to duty. But we have not devoted ourselves to our own dominion. So do you think it's because people really believe that the one who made it ought to take care of it?
He asked us to.
Yeah,
I think there's an arrogant acceptance that we're okay. And what we're doing is okay, even if it has such disastrous results, because it's not okay.
so the people in the US may not know that the Canadian Church, the Anglican Church of Canada, has added another vow to its baptismal promises in respect to the earth. That it's ongoing care and protection and renewal and safeguarding, which is very powerful to put that, to reclaim that in terms of what our faith looks like, what Debbie was saying. We've been asked to do that, and it is something to which we give our assent. Okay, next slide, please, Nance. So would somebody read the Dostoevsky quote?
Yeah, I could.
Thank you, Patricia.
Love all God's creation, the whole earth, the whole and every grain of sand in it. Love every leaf, every ray of God's light. Love the animals, love the plants, love everything. If you love everything, you will perceive the divine mystery in things. Once you perceive it, you will begin to comprehend it better every day, and you will come at last to love the whole world with an all-embracing love. Dostoevsky.
And the next quote.
I will. How do I find Creator? You become what you seek. I don't understand. You decide what Creator is. If you decide she or he is peace, love, humility, and non-judgment, you decide to work toward embodying those qualities in your walkabout world. The closer you get to that, the closer you are to finding Creator. That's what our ceremonies are for, to teach you that Creator is in you, that Creator always was and will be. Richard Wagner from the Embers.
Yeah. So what these two quotes, how they spoke to me was both the outward action of our love, which comes from having been loved into being ourselves. And if there's a dynamic there, I think some of you had talked about the dynamic and some of the images that we had. Just speaking to anybody about our role as the created ones.
Well, I think the second quote is one that we'll talk, not about the quote necessarily, but about the concept behind it or the understanding behind it a lot in next week's class. And I hope that's not going to put you off, but the way that the metaphors that we use for God, are kind of similar to, what do we decide God's characteristics are? And for so many, we could decide that, God he is protector, warrior, defender, and that could, and judger, or judge, and that could lead and does lead, I think, to quite different understandings of what our relationship with each other and with God and with the earth is. So if we could all just agree that God is peace, love, humility, and non-judgment, well, we would definitely be better off because we would strive to do that. But I don't know that we all agree that that's, that that's what we think God is. But just
Yeah, and this is Richard Wagamese was Ojibwe. So from time to time, I will bring in some of the native pieces as well.
Yeah, and I'm reading this Embers. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it is. It's very good. Okay.
That sentence, you become what you seek, really sums it up, I think.
Yeah. And that our ceremonies, all of them, like an earth mass, for example, that our ceremonies are to teach us about the Creator's presence from the beginning of the world. So that's why I'm sorry you missed that kind of visual, looking at the earth from outer space. I think that did reframe a lot of people's understanding how us being one human race on one globe. Okay, the next slide, Nancy, please. Well, as Pamela pointed out earlier, maybe the first attempt to deal with us, creation didn't work out so well. So God recast the story. So yeah. Only it wasn't, I don't see any plants on this boat, but and I don't see two of everything either.
Oh, 2 lions.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, I think it's interesting that there's a camel there. Oh yeah, the 2 lions. Yeah, thank you.
And there is a raccoon.
Oh, you're right. There it is.
Right down in front.
Yeah.
I think the second animal is always hiding exactly behind the first one.
Mm.
This is so much better than those pictures you see of the orderly 2x2. Have you ever seen animals walk 2x2 in a line? No. Yeah, and then you get on the boat and it would be like this. If it had happened, it would be like this.
What else do you notice?
The hippo deeply regrets his decision.
And that the birds are in the air, not necessarily sitting on the boat.
Well, I always thought, it's all well and good for the animals on the boat, but the unicorns and the whales and the sharks, water, like how did they get where they were supposed to go? I know the unicorns never made it because the song tells us that. But the whales and the sharks and the fishes and everything, they had to figure out how to get there on their own because they didn't get on the boat.
Well, they go to the deep waters during the storms, so they stay safe.
Now there is this sense that there is a storm, isn't there?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And that we all want some light on the situation. We all want people to pay attention to not just all the endangered species that are in a boat. And I've talked, I don't know, in another forum about the National Geographic photographer who is trying to photograph all the endangered species so that we can see them, so that they don't matter to us.
Something that I see and I love this picture, is that there's no fighting. They're all calm, and these are creatures that would have eaten each other.
Mm-hmm. Mhm.
You know, and there's this calmness and this, they're not afraid. They're just there and they're at peace.
Again, I wish I could give you the attribution for this artist. It was, you know, when you ask Mr. Google for art images of Noah's Ark, you get, as Susan said, some really dreadful stuff. Or you get a picture of the ark itself based on whatever is spelled out in scripture. But it's just something so beautiful. This is a remarkable portrait of part of creation, and it makes me happy to look at it. The artist did such a fine job.
So where are the people? I mean, in the second picture, we see Noah, but where are the picture people in the first one?
Well, I don't know that we're going to last.
They might be having to shovel everything that these animals are producing.
They're below deck, yeah.
They're down below. They don't like the water.
I don't think they'd go down below by choice, because we all know which way shit falls. But I was thinking, when you were talking about what about the fishes and the whales and the things, about when we took a boat from Hilton Head to Savannah, and a dolphin followed the boat and chattered away to a child who chattered back. And the size of this boat, as it was described, I would think that the fishes and the whales, and I would think there was curiosity. So they would come aboard, but they would come along.
Well, and as Joe said, there's a delight in relationship. And we do take particular delight in relationship. Not just with our domesticated animals, but sometimes in the wild too.
Well,
So yes, go ahead,
one of
Debbie.
the lions was pregnant, so because there's a baby in there.
Yeah, a little cub, indeed. So I put Noah in there because this is a goal of creation care, is peace.
And
That
I
we
think
can,
it is an image that we're all in this boat together, sink or
Mhm.
swim.
Yeah.
You know, this ark is carrying
all
everyone,
of us.
animals, everything, people.
And Bill Reed's Haida Gwaii, this magnificent sculpture. I didn't include it in tonight's session, but I think I have included it at other times. Humanity is in the boat with the animals of the Pacific Northwest in a traditional boat. And the guy who's paddling the boat has the traditional hat on him. And there is something about exactly what you said. We are all in this together. And we have separated ourselves from the rest of creation, kind of the way these two pictures are separated. And the challenge is to get back. So this little piece about Noah is part of a larger old mosaic. Okay, the final, I think it's a final slide, Nancy. Oh yeah, it is. Okay, Susan, did you want to say something?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Glenn Fox, I see you down there. Would you like to read this prayer?
O great Spirit, whose voice I hear in the winds, whose breath gives life to the world, hear me. I come to you as one of your many children, I am small and weak. I need your strength and wisdom. May I walk in your beauty. May my eyes behold the red and purple sunset. Make my hands respect the things that you have made, and my ears sharp to your voice. Make me wise so that I may know things you have taught your children, the lessons you have written, every leaf and rock. Make me strong, not to be superior to my brothers and sisters, but to fight my greatest enemy, myself. Make me ever ready to come to you with straight eyes, so that when life fades, as the fading sunset, my spirit may come to you without shame.
Amen. Thank you. Again, beginnings, endings, the whole circle of life. Can we go back to just the people, please, Nancy? Okay. So we're almost trying to see what the time is. So we have about 5 minutes, and we had plenty of time for homework, for Joe's homework. And so
May I ask a quick question?
absolutely.
Could Nancy send us, email us, or put it somewhere where we can pull it down, the Wendellberry and the Indian prayer? Thank you.
So let's make sure that we have all of the email addresses too, so that we know who is here tonight. Does that come up for you automatically, Nancy, on the administrative tasks? You're muted.
Sorry. I do think I can get all of the participants. I'm not positive about that, but I think.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So I threw you some curveballs tonight. So was that? That's kind of my pattern, but how did that leave you from this session? What are your takeaways tonight from this session?
I think you made a great circle, which is what creation is all about. So I think it's been beautiful and I appreciate it. It's great to be with you all.
It's good to see you, Claire, always. Thank you.
I came away with the strength of creation, that it is this powerful, powerful force and energy that goes on even when we fall away.
Thank you, Susan. Yes, I think that one of my insights that when I was out in Wyoming several years ago on this ranch and saw the stars and whatever, and the kind of different kind of landscape and rocky soil and so on, was that I was thinking about people whose cremains are returned to the earth and how wonderful that we are then forever part of ongoing creation. Certainly that happens with our bodies as well, but there's just something about being in that place that helped me think about returning. Didn't feel like dust was such a bad thing, but I didn't want anybody to trample on me either. I wanted some care. Okay, well, thank you for coming and for working through this concession. Joe, do you want to give a heads up for next week? You started to.
Yes, and I'll give you some more homework if you will, but this is very easy. And it is this, and we've already talked about it a little bit, and that is that we use lots of metaphors for God. And so what I invite you to do is to think of your favorite way, your favorite understanding of who God is. Who is God for you? And what is the metaphor that expresses that? Could be God the Father, could be Jesus, could be Holy Spirit, could be God as my rock, could be anything. The scripture is shot full or shot through with lots of metaphorical ways of describing God. And so my invitation to you is for you to talk about what your favorite metaphor is for God. And lest you, just to remind you, I'm not an English teacher by any means, but a metaphor is something else. It's not something like something else, it's something is something else. So when Jesus says, I am the way, I am the true vine, those are metaphors that Jesus applied to himself. They have particular meanings. So, but they have also expansive meanings as well. So anyway, that's for next week.
Thank you. Okay. And thanks, Nancy, for helping facilitate tonight.
Thank you, Nancy.
Yeah. Okay.
Good night,
With you. Thank you.
Bye. See you next time. Okay.
Thank you.
I know.
Thanks.